ICC is taking to tackle this?
Well, I'll answer the last question first. To the audience, when there's a crime, you have to go down to the basic. You have to meet the people. You have to go down to the precinct level. So remember the number 1326. 1326. That is the hotline number of our Interagency Response Center. It is a 24-hour call center, and we have 10 personnel. We have 30 personnel the whole day, 24 hours. We can be contacted through the 3 cell phone companies, and also by Facebook and social media and our website. So 24 hours, we have people listening to complaints of or victims of cybercrime. After we assess the call, we classify the calls to several aspects: women and children, social media and online communication, consumer protection, fraud and financial crimes, critical infrastructure, cyber intrusion, cyber terrorism, and fraud and financial crimes. So after we classify them, we go to the experts, and the experts, they will take note of everything, and if needed, we will refer them to the NBI or to the PNP. That's one aspect of what we're trying to address. Secondly, we also have the National Crime Hub. The National Crime Hub is space in our office wherein we ask the members of the sector, the vital health sector, to join us, where we could have a situation room, and they can be there for the whole day. Eventually, we want it to be populated more and more. But right now, we have the United Nations there, we have ScamWatch Philippines, we have the SEC, we have the COMELEC, we have Bureau of Immigration, we have the PNP, and we have this group, Who's Call. So they're there every day from 8 to 5. Eventually, you want to expand to 24 hours. It's going to be a place where people can send their people and have an office there the whole day, free of charge. And then eventually, there's a need for a common action or common consensus or sharing of data or experiences. That will be the place. So we started this last year, and now we have 11 members or so. Thirdly, we have campaigns of education all over the Philippines. We are helping train the PNP and the armed forces. We're helping train a lot of the local executives, and we are going to the barrios to train citizens on what is the life under cybercrime or cyber life. So that is the second question. The first question: what are the trends in cybercrime? The first one now, the trend now is AI. The deepfakes are now increasing, so you can have a person like a president saying something bad against another country, which is not true. So that's AI. For AI, we're trying to get some research on that. We have partnered with College of St. Benil to have a mechanism or an application to help us understand the AI. The second one is cryptocurrency. There's a lot of fraud now on cryptocurrency. We have the chain block or the chain analysis equipment. Actually, we have the best equipment in the Philippines. So we can trace the wallets, but after they are traded on the exchange, it's hard for us to follow because most of the crypto exchanges are in West Africa. So I think there's a need for more need to join forces with the other international communities if we want to really go after the crypto fraud people. The last is ransomware. It is now becoming popular in the Philippines. So, addressing that, we also have the chain equipment, chain equipment, and slowly we're doing that. But as of now, we are copying or using the FBI mode, the FBI response we are following. Now the other crimes, the other old crimes are the following: consumer fraud, online fraud, unsolicited communication, illegal access, identity theft, sexual cybercrime, phishing, threats, and walk-in. And then we have, for consumer fraud, we have non-payment, impersonation, fake advertisement, and advance fees. Online fraud, compensation, financial, investment fraud, job fraud, love scam, and advance fees. And sometimes no delivery. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Reyes, for the really very comprehensive summary, and it's fascinating to learn more about the convening role that the CICC is playing, and a common theme that came through some of the initiatives that you outlined was the role of partnerships and bringing different players together to tackle this problem. And obviously, a really very important part of that ecosystem of cooperation is the telco sector. And we know that telcos are also increasingly working together to tackle this issue, with GSMA's Open Gateway playing a key role. I'd like to move to John next. And John, just to ask you to talk about how PLDT is using open APIs to tackle the threat.
Thanks, Yuan. Maybe before I answer that question, I'd like to also probably add on to what Justice Reyes has said about scams. You know, in reality, if you look at our history as well, Philippines is a mobile-first country. They say mobile-first country, if they want to do a transaction, the first thing that they think of is how do I do it with my mobile device. And studies have shown that about 64% of transactions are actually coming off from the use of handsets, right? And because of the volume of transactions, the Philippines has become a major target for, you know, malicious actors. Now, given that PLDT and SMART fully understands the critical role of telcos in fighting fraudulent activities, no? And you know, we're very thankful also for entities like GSMA, who has been driving anti-fraud measures globally by, you know, uniting telcos, application developers, enterprises, and ensuring that we create mechanisms to fight fraud. And one of those initiatives is what we call Open API or Open Gateway, and we fully subscribe to that. In fact, we onboarded with GSMA on that initiative this year. And based on that, we've actually invested already a lot and be able to release new services by next year. And what are those services? No? There's three particular services that we are going to release next year. And I believe our well, the other telcos have already also said that they're going to do that, and we'd like to also collaborate with them. The first one is what we call silent authentication. And silent authentication basically allows consumer to securely log into any application without the use of one-time PINs. Now, unfortunately, one-time PINs have become interceptable. Okay, what does that mean? Malicious actors have made creative ways to intercept OTPs and disguise themselves as the subscriber making the transaction. Now with silent authentication, we're eliminating OTPs, and validation is directly from merchant directly to the network, our network. The second one is device location. Now, I'll give you a very good example of device location and how it mitigates fraud. Just recently, I received a credit card statement showing that I made a purchase, a significant amount in New York, when in fact I'm in Manila, right? Now, the mechanism of device location basically allows the merchants or entities to validate your location versus where the transaction happens. And if there is, variances in that, then you can automatically deny those transactions. The third one, which banks heavily use, is KYC, right? They have a full template of being able to really understand their customers. And if you are able to cross-validate it and match it with network or telco data, and that is a very fantastic way to validate transactions, because you're able to determine if the person is really the person who he says he is, right? And with that, we're planning to release new services. And we hope to, of course, work with the digital community to reinforce our fight against crime. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for those fascinating insights on the approach that PLDT are taking. I'd like to move on to Lito. We're excited to have you here to provide a perspective from the financial services sector. How are you working with partners and deploying innovative solutions to tackle the threat?
Thank you, Iwan. I think this panel, or the topic of this panel, is really very significant, especially for us Filipinos, given the fact that even a regulator with the entire ecosystem of us being able to help promote the use of digital payments. And with that digital payments come trust, like making sure that the consumers would have to have the trust and confidence or rely on the effectivity or effectiveness in terms of security and soundness of their financial transactions. And of course, going into what we have actually done thus far, in fact last year, we launched the industry first nationwide education campaign on cybersecurity, wherein all our regulators led by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, including of course CICC, as well as the ICT and other law enforcement agencies such as the Philippine National Police, the National Bureau of Investigation, together with media, civil society, and of course all the players in the industry. In fact, even Globe President and CEO Ernest Cruz was there, GCash, Maya, and all the other, about over 100 fintech players, including banks, have collaborated to launch that massive nationwide campaign on cybersecurity education. So that's really, it's called hashtag Wag Magpaloko Maging Scam Alerto. So, because we know for a fact that in the scheme of things, education plays a critical role in the cybersecurity ecosystem, right? Making sure that while we are competitors in the market, all the players in the industry would have that united front insofar as having to share data when it comes to cyber threats. So that's why this topic about being united against scam is very timely, given the fact that, for example, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas came up with a campaign on having to push digital payments transformation roadmap, when it called for two goals. One is to convert at least 50% of retail financial transactions to digital, and on board at least 70% of adult Filipinos to formal financial system, or for them to have transactional accounts by end of last year. Well, the good news is that one of those two goals has been achieved, and that is having to transform or convert at least 50% of retail financial transactions to digital. In fact, right now it's now at 52.4% digital so far as retail transactions are concerned, coming from just 1% in 2017. So imagine the leap of our digital payments adoption. Of course, there is a silver lining on COVID-19, and that is practically the accelerated pace of adoption when it comes to digital payments. But the thing here is that with the acceleration on the adoption of digital payments come the acceleration of digital fraud, right? So that's why what was John said a while ago about having to eliminate OTPs, because actually one of those main concerns is consumers having to give out their OTPs, right? Because of course, they are being duped by scammers, being employed with AI being employed with your deepfakes and practically all of these technologies that are being facilitated by bad actors. So that's why our aspiration and our advocacy in the industry is tech for good, and how we can now leverage on these emerging technologies for good and having to eliminate those bad actors along the way. But it would really take a village, of course, together with government, with the law enforcement agencies and civil society, and of course media, and of course other organizations like say GSMA, to be part of that united front, right? So that's why one of the things that we are now focusing on is also on how to also transition the use of OTP towards what we call the mobile key, right? So that's why this is just one of those items that we are pushing. But of course, the primary goal is on how to further expand our massive education campaign on cybersecurity awareness.
Thank you very much, Lito. And we hear again about the critical role of trust as an enabler of adoption of digital technologies. And thank you as well for raising the importance of education and digital literacy for tackling this as well. I mean, we know that scammers are highly determined and sophisticated and will continue to evolve their methods. So with that in mind, I have in mind the clock as well, so I'd ask you, each of you, to condense this last answer into 1 minute each. I'd ask you, looking across the ecosystem of government, industry, and civil society, what more must be done to stay ahead of the threat? And I'll go in reverse order this time, so I'll start with Lito.
I think one key takeaway here, specifically for this panel, is the acronym TRUST, T-R-U-S-T. Technology that is responsive, universal, secure, and transparent.
John? Oh,
that was nice, Lito. No, again, I guess it's from our end. It's constant education and re-education of our consumers. I guess one success story from our end, from PLDT and Smart, is that we've constantly been able to educate our customers now. Because it's not only the consumers that needs educating, it's also enterprises. And most of those enterprises are the ones who have the mobile application that engages consumers, right? And if the enterprises are not educated on how to use or how to fight cyber crimes, then they're also partly involved in those malicious transactions, right? So over the years, we've been cited in terms of how we educate enterprises in fighting cyber crimes, and we will continue to educate and re-educate as long as there's crime that needs to be fought. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a really important point. Justice Reyes, the last word is with you.
Yes, we need more intelligent people, we need more brains, so that we could have the applications or the business processes tamper-proof. And I'm happy that there is a lot of seminars and conventions on cyber and on technology. I've never seen a lot of these seminars. Since I joined CICC, there's one every month. So I guess there is a notice or awareness that cybercrime or cyber technology or technology is the way of the future, and we are all here trying to have a better world of technology. Thank you.
And that's a fitting note on which to end. Again, I'd just like to extend my thanks to all the panelists for a really insightful and productive discussion. Thank you. Please give them a round of applause.